Welcome to Just Another Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This is episode 21. It's our second season. Today's guest is Ben Sprague of the Bangor City Council, and he's a vice president and relations officer for the First National Bank in Bangor as well. But today's episode, we focus on the greater Bangor area, the importance of voting, the importance of local government, and what Ben has in store for the future, maybe, and maybe other things. So, thank you for listening in. If you need more information on checking how to register to vote, or if you're registered to vote, visit vote.org or some of the various other websites to check to see if you're registered to vote. Voting is very important. I don't care what candidate you are voting for. Voting is very important in this upcoming election, whether it be for the president or for local and state government. Please vote on November 3rd. You can request an absentee ballot. If you don't want to go in Maine, you can go to vote.org again and check that out. This is episode 21 with Ben Sprague of the Bangor City Council. Hope you enjoy. How's it going, Ben?
Good. It's nice to see you and talk to you.
Exactly. We bump into each other, but usually I'm working and you're kind of working when we see you when you're up at doing your job for First National Bank at Orono Brewing Company. So usually we're like, hey, how's it going? And I have to run, go somewhere. So this is nice to have a conversation.
Well, working is a loose term. I'm usually at OBC to have a good time, and I always like seeing you guys up there, and you got a great product, great space, and yeah, it's been fun to see your growth and you personally. You and I have known each other for a long time, and it's interesting when you get out of high school and paths lead in different directions, but then you end up in a community and the people you get to know, and you know them in different ways from when you knew them before. It's just, I like that small town stuff.
It is cool. And it's just with my job at Orono Brewing Company, it's happened a lot more with like Justin Frizzell, our distributor. He and I used to work at Best Buy together back in 2004, 2005. I moved to Massachusetts, I come back, and now he's our brand representative for our distributor. So it's like how like the paths diverge and then come back. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. Before I get any further, my favorite story about Ben Sprague is back when you were at Harvard and I had just moved back to Connecticut to be with my dad, who just had taken a job as a pastor in Connecticut. And I decided that, hey, I live in southern New England now. It's closer to Fenway Park than anywhere else that I've lived in my life. And I thought, let's go to a Red Sox game. So I went to a Red Sox game and I got there really early and I was like, you know what? There's a tour. I can do a tour of Fenway Park. That would be really cool. And so I sign up for the tour and I go over and I wait by the entrance and we're waiting there. A couple people are talking and all of a sudden I know where someone comes up and says, hello, everybody. I'm here. I'm Ben. I'm going to give you a tour. And it was Ben Sprague. And it was the funniest thing for me because it was just like, how like hours apart. I didn't know you had gone to were down there for school. I mean, you were 2 years ahead of me. So it was like you had already graduated and moved on and you were already in school. And so I didn't know where you had went. And it was before social media really. So there was no real like me keeping track of you online.
Right.
And it was just the funniest thing because I was like in a city as big as Boston at something as small as a tour for Fenway Park that I'd run into you. Did you enjoy doing those tours? Do you miss that kind of thing or?
I do, yeah. I had a great time with that. And that probably happened a dozen times or so. I was a tour guide for 1 year, and then I worked for the Red Sox for a couple years after I was a tour guide. And back then it was like peak Red Sox fandom, both for me personally, but also throughout New England and throughout Maine. They had a streak where they sold out every game for many years in a row. And it was not out of the ordinary that people would drive down from Maine, including all the way up in the Bangor area, just down and back sometimes, or down for a whole weekend just to go to a game. And they would try to double up and do a tour before. So it happened probably a dozen times that I saw people from Bangor on tours. And yeah, that was just one of those dream jobs that I found my way into, and I love doing it. I have friends still working for the Red Sox. It's been 10 years since I worked for the Red Sox, but I always knew I wanted to move back to Maine, and you can't work for the Red Sox and live in Maine. So it was just a window of my life, a time capsule almost, that I I knew even at that time, I remember thinking, I'm always going to remember this, and I can never truly appreciate this in the moment that I'm in right now, but I'll always look back and remember the several years I worked for the Red Sox. And it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And just to be kind of behind the scenes on the production side of what goes on at a ballpark and with a professional sports team, I learned a lot, and it was a lot of fun too.
It was just crazy to me. It's like, I mean, obviously, like you say, if you could get into everything you did for the Red Sox, but in the same sense, you have that on your resume of like you were an employee of the Red Sox. I'm guessing. I mean, you got a check that said Boston Red Sox
Yeah.
on it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty sweet. Like,
Yeah. I remember that first winter. It was my senior year of college, and the Red Sox posted on their website, redsox.com, that they were hiring tour guides, which they never post jobs like that. And I applied, and some months later found out that they had like thousands of applications, and they hired 7 of us. So I don't know what it was about me that my application wove its way through the bureaucracy to the right person that they hired me. But it was fun, and I learned about public speaking, fan services, interacting, and all the things that go on behind the scenes. There's the product on the field, but then there's the whole way that product is presented and everything that goes into the fan experience. Because the Red Sox are somewhat unique among professional sports teams, that people go for the ballpark as much as the team. Especially in down years, the Red Sox would still sell out every game. And I should turn the
that's fine.
and so it was fun, and I look back on it very fondly, that time in my life.
I just wanted to get that out of the way because I think it was not out of the way, but like the conversation I've had this conversation with you before and talking about it and so on. But like it's still one of the most unique things for me too, because again, like you said, it's unique for you and the experience that you had with the Red Sox. But it was really my first adult Red Sox game. I had only gone to one other Red Sox game prior to that, and that was for my birthday a few years earlier. My dad had brought me to the Red Sox for my birthday, and that was the first experience I'd ever had at Fenway Park. We sat in obstructed view seats that we ended up moving around trying to find the right seats and make good. You know, Tim Wakefield pitched, and I was pretty excited about that. And so fast forward a couple of years later, to me to go to Experience and be alone. I bought tickets off of eBay. It was a single ticket because the guy was just trying to offload it because he had sold all the other tickets or whatever. And so I had this opportunity to go down there. It happened to be the right day, the right time to get you as my tour guide. And I felt like I was at home. Like I felt less in a big city alone, which is pretty funny. But we're here to talk more about the city of Bangor and a place that I've grown to love. I moved away in 2006, moved back in 2016. It was one of the best decisions I ever did in my life to move back. And I'm really excited to see the future of Bangor and the growth of Bangor with a little bit of hiccup right now with COVID, but like the future is bright for Bangor. You sit as a city council member for, this is your 9th year, is that right? So
That's
you're
right.
3 terms,
Yep.
and you're finishing up in November, right?
Yep.
And
Just coming too close.
your dad's running,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Has he been a city council member before, or is this new to him too?
He has not. He has not. I think he watched me do it for the last 9 years and probably thought he could do a better job than me. And he's probably right. So I've encouraged him for a while, though, to think about it because, I mean, I'm very biased, but I think he'll do a great job if he gets elected. He's very thoughtful. He has no axes to grind. He's a pretty moderate voice. On some things, he's pretty far to the left, and on some things, he's more conservative. And local politics is, for the most part, apolitical, and we don't have political parties at city council. I've been allied with the most progressive members of the city council in certain issues, and then maybe the next meeting I'm allied with the most conservative members of the council, because that's the nature of local politics. It cuts in some odd directions sometimes, and I love that. So yeah, my term is winding to a close. I had a similar story as you of going away, and I lived in Massachusetts for about 9 years, from when I graduated from high school, Bangor High School in 2002, and then from 4 years of college, and then 4.5, 5 years after college, I stayed in the greater Boston area. And I feel similarly to you that moving back to Bangor was really one of the best decisions I ever made. I have not ever regretted it. It's sometimes, of course, it's a certain moment you think, oh, I'd love to go out in a big city tonight, and I'd love to go to that bar or that restaurant or do that thing or see that sporting event or that concert or whatever. And you can always drive to Boston and New York, and some of these other cities are not that far away. And I mean, we can get more into it, but I've just loved living in Bangor. To be a part of the Bangor City Council has really been a dream and an opportunity to hopefully have made a positive difference in things and to at least have a voice at the table on some of the decisions that are being made.
I mean, you went to school for government, right? Am I correct on that? So was
Yep.
this the plan at some point that you'd want, maybe not Bangor City Council, but that you'd want to sit in some city council to get started in the political journey, or is this just Bangor was the place you wanted to come back to in the first place?
Yeah, so majored in government in part because I thought it would be a route into law school, which is what I was thinking about a lot at the time. And probably halfway through college, I thought, one, I'm not ready to just continue school right after undergraduate. I've been in school a long time now, going all the way back. And two, I just don't think I want to do law school anymore. I think I'm more interested in the business world, and that ended up being what happened. But I was definitely always interested in government, both the history side of things and also the current event political side of things. I would always love watching election night. Even back when I was a kid, I remember watching it with my parents and seeing the yard signs that went up and trying to learn about candidates and the local races and the state races and higher up. And I had always thought might like to do that at some point. And city council was a great opportunity to do that. I ran pretty soon after I moved back in 2011. Didn't know if I'd get elected. Thought if I didn't, well, I will have learned something. I can run again potentially in a year or two. But fortunately got elected, and city council's been a lot of fun, and I've worked with some great people over time. And as you said, kind of at the beginning, I think Bangor is really on the upswing other than this COVID moment we're in right now. Who knows what the effects are going to be of that, but 2010 to 2020 was really a great decade for Bangor, I think.
And it's huge. And I moved back in 2016 with the original, like, I didn't really want to be back here. So like I had an ex-wife, my ex-wife now, a wife at the time, who had family back up here. My family lives in Connecticut and Virginia and other places in the country. And so my dad came up here to go to Bangor Theological Seminary. So he moved us up when I was 10 originally. And so to me, it was like, where the heck is Bangor? This is like out of nowhere. I lived in Kittery, Maine at the time. And so I was forced to be here, if you think about it, like through middle school, high school years. So the second I got out of high school, I was like, no, I'm moving far away from here as possible. This place has nothing for me. I don't know, just almost like fighting the system in a sense, like fighting what my parents' decision was to come up here. I
Yeah.
went to Massachusetts for a number of years and came back. But when I got back, my relationship had fallen apart, but it was like, okay, now I'm here. Now I'm an adult in this area. Things have changed. There's more to do. There's bands that I would want to have seen in Boston or something like that that I can now see at the Waterfront or at the
Hmm.
Cross Insurance Arena. The restaurants that are here, the bars, the different events and activities that go along. But also the idea that whenever I go back to visit Massachusetts, it's like, why did I live here for so many years? Nothing
Yeah.
against Massachusetts, but the traffic, the people, the
Yeah.
chaos of things. It's just Bangor has a little bit of everything, in my opinion, and that has that. But also, when I go to Orono from Orrington, I can drive and make it in 15, 20 minutes every single day, unless there's an accident or bad weather or
Right.
whatever. But like, there's no traffic.
Right. Yeah, if I get in a traffic jam on my way home, it's a 7-minute drive home instead of a 5-minute drive home. And in Massachusetts, I was working in Boston and living in Waltham, which is just west of Boston. And if I didn't get on the road by 6:30 or so in the morning, it was an hour and a half drive to go 8 or 10 miles. And I don't miss that. I don't miss turning on the faucet and wondering if the water is going to be good to drink. There's many places in the country where they can't be sure of that. And in fact, they're not sure of it, or they know it's not clean to drink. In Maine, we have a lot of things that I think people take for granted. I felt very fortunate to go away and then come back. And I think for people that can or want to be able to get out and experience something else, but then be able to make a conscious choice to move back and have the ability to move back, have a job to move back to or something to settle into, This is a great lifestyle around here. I've heard Bangor be described as just big enough and just small enough. And I think that's exactly right. A lot of those social things you're talking about. When I was first running for council, it was all about jobs, got to draw young people back here, create jobs. And that is always true. But the social aspect of living in this area is a big thing too, that I think people didn't always appreciate, that even if somebody has a job that they want to move to here for, or a job they find when they're here, they still want to be sure that there's things going on, that there is an active nightlife, that there's going to be concerts on the waterfront or at the Cross Center or live music downtown. I don't go to that many concerts. I don't go to that many events at the Cross Center, but I like to know that they're there. I like to know that they're happening. And that's what I think Bangor, and certainly before I was involved with City Council, Bangor was already coming along to have those things going on, so that a younger person or an older person could move here and feel like they could have a stimulating life, that there were going to be other like-minded people around, and that it was going to be a rewarding place to not just have a job, but also have a lifestyle and a life that make them happy and comfortable and stimulated.
You mentioned not going to many concerts or shows or stuff like that. I don't either, but there's specific ones that I would like to go to or pick out. But I do know a lot of people who go to the waterfront concerts just to go to the concert, which is one of the
Mm-hmm.
coolest things. You don't do that in Massachusetts because it's a pain in the butt to get there and back and do all that stuff and to park and all that stuff. But it's so easy to go to a concert on the waterfront or Cross Insurance Arena or even small little venue in downtown Bangor,
Mm-hmm.
that people do it just to go out on a Friday night and go to a concert. It could be anything. I know people who are at the most random events because it's something
Yeah.
to do and it's fun and it's an enjoyable experience, but not hard to get to, hard to park, hard to travel, that kind of stuff as well. You know, the whole Bangor's just big enough, just small enough is equal to that concert thing too.
Yeah. I think one of the first concerts they had, this iteration of Waterfront Concerts, was Celtic Woman in 2010. And I remember that because I would always follow the Bangor Daily News online when I was in Massachusetts. I remember thinking, like, there was a big story because it was a major event for the season, for the year for Bangor, that Celtic Women were going to have a show on the waterfront. I remember thinking, oh, it's kind of cool. And then there was another show like a couple weeks later. And I remember thinking, that's great. Like that, I'm not going to be first in line for a Celtic Women concert, but I might have gone to it if I was in town then. And just to have those types of activities going on was a big thing. And since then, we've seen not just economic impact from the ticket sales of the concerts, but also there's been several new hotels that have either been built or expanded. There's been lots of new restaurants, lots of development downtown. And a lot of that is concerts, and it's also creative economy in general. It's Kabang was a part of that. Bangor Arts Exchange, Penobscot Theater, and Bangor Symphony Orchestra. Some of the organizations have been around for a long time. Places like Nocturnum having a jazz night, or the Central Street Farmhouse or Rock and Art Shop Rock and Art Shop has an art gallery on the wall of their shop, and many businesses. Orno Brewing Company has done this with a real funky atmosphere at the Margin Street tasting room and brewery in Orno. That it's just a stimulating environment that kind of wraps the arts into it, whether there's a mural or graffiti on the wall like at OBC and Orno. And I think a lot of that, we're just an arts-minded community, but a lot of that goes back to Folk Festival and Kabang, and certainly Waterfront Concerts and everything else that followed with it.
And it just shows the future of what it can be as well. So people are wanting to do these kind of things in places like, I mean, and we can throw Abe and Heather Firth in there and the other people who are adding,
Mm-hmm.
buying businesses and renovating buildings in downtown Bangor to make it an enjoyable place to go to as well. So there's that, bringing that aspect of, you know, like I said, I'm very close to the Firth. So the Firth, as an example, is coming to downtown Bangor and building the stuff, or staying in Orno or staying in Maine because they love the state and they
Mm-hmm.
want other people to enjoy being in this greater Bangor area. And so by buying Franklin Street building and their State Street building and renovating it and making it so that you don't drive down Bangor and see buildings that are like, oh, that's really cool, but what's up with this dilapidated thing?
Yeah.
And so the future of real estate investment as well in downtown Bangor is huge. You mentioned Nocturnum and them having, you know, their spot and then expanding kind of left and growing their business. And, you know, the outdoor patio area that Bangor has been renovating behind there and in the square in front of the parking garage and all that stuff, that it's stuff that people used to go to the Bangor Mall for, like to
Yeah,
do and enjoy. It's like now it's moving to back to the olden days where it was,
yeah,
downtown Bangor was the place to go. Has been huge. It's been really cool for me to come back to and be like, let's go to downtown Bangor. I mean, I moved downtown Bangor for a year and
yeah.
enjoyed being there. I mean, 20, 25 years ago, do you think anybody really wanted to live in downtown Bangor?
I remember also reading on the Bangor Daily News when Patty Murphy's opened in downtown Bangor. I think it was '07 or '08, which wasn't that long ago. It seems like they've been there for longer. But when they opened, I remember thinking it would be really depressing to go drink in downtown Bangor right now. And that was the feel. It was kind of a wasteland. In 2011, when I moved back, there was more going on, and Nocturnum had just opened. Bangor Wine and Cheese was there, and there was some good things happening. But the upper floors on a lot of these buildings were empty, and not in great shape either. And a lot of these real estate developers, like Abe and Heather, and several others downtown, have taken these buildings and totally brought them back to life and saved, in some cases, entire blocks of the city downtown, and also added a big missing part, which was the residential rental units downtown, where I moved back and I really wanted to live downtown. And I got lucky to find a place kind of above Nocturnum in the old Standard Shoe building that I lived in for a year, which was great. But there wasn't a lot of inventory. And now there's still not enough inventory, but there's more. There's one Main Street, 29 Franklin Street, like you say, State Street, more on Main Street. There's a lot of residential rentals downtown, and the property owners get pretty good rents for a lot of them. And I've heard grumbling out there that downtown has gotten too expensive. Well, it's gotten expensive in part because the demand to live downtown has increased tenfold in the last 10 years. And a lot of people want to live downtown, and it's new inventory as well. These units that are downtown in some of these nice old buildings, they just simply didn't exist 10 years ago. So the inventory has swelled and the prices for rents have gone up, which I know there's negative consequences of people getting priced out, but for the most part, it's all new inventory that wasn't there to begin with. And the more people we can have living downtown, the better off the businesses are going to be downtown. The vibrance increases, and also people that want to live downtown, but there's not any inventory for them, they still want to be close to downtown. So I feel really optimistic about certain neighborhoods that have been neglected or not thought well of for a long time, but the Ohio Street, Essex Street, Court Street, First to Third Street, those are great spots in that you can walk to downtown, the waterfront, the cross center, the casino. It's all right there. And those neighborhoods have been not thought well of in many ways for a long time, but I see the next 10 to 15 years, things really improving in those spots that are adjacent to downtown.
It's incredible the growth that you mentioned over the years. Was this? I mean, do you feel like you've accomplished what you've wanted to accomplish in the 9 years in the Bangor City Council? I mean, you have some input and say, obviously, with what the council can do, but like, do you think when you leave in November, do you think that you did what you set out to do 9 years ago, personally?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, no one counselor, least not of which me alone, accomplishes anything by themselves in this. The city staff plays a huge role, more so than the council, really. But the council sets agenda, sets vision, and I think for the most part, we've gotten a lot right. We've got this great triangle or corridor from the cross center and the casino right into downtown that includes the waterfront. Some of the less sexy things that the city's done have been out in the neighborhoods doing infrastructure work and making sure playgrounds are updated and working with to fix up abandoned and dilapidated properties or vacant properties around the neighborhoods. I think Bangor's in a much better place than we were 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we were also in the depths of the so-called Great Recession. And so we were kind of in a trough, but I think that we've come a long way in the last 10 years. I feel good about it overall. I could pick out a dozen things that I wish we had done more on, but it's kind of the nature of the world. Progress and change are hard sometimes. And this last year on the council has not been what I expected it to be because of COVID, certainly. And there's been a few projects and goals I've had just in the last year or two that I hope to get done, but haven't quite gotten there. But there's other counselors, and there's good counselors. Bangor has always been fortunate to have good elected leaders, and there will be other councilors and other priorities will help keep moving the ball forward for Bangor in the next years to come.
And forgive me for not knowing this, but so you could serve 3 consecutive terms. Could you again run in 2021 if you wanted to and skip a year
Yep.
and still
Yep.
is it something
Yep.
you'd like to do, or is this your time on the city council is now done? Not saying you have to make a final statement on this, but like, is
Sure.
it something you'd be interested in coming back to do in a year or two from now?
I'm basically waiting just to see what it's like to not be doing it. I think I will miss it a lot. I know I will, because it's a big part of who I am, and it's been a very personally fulfilling experience. I wish everybody could have a chance to do it, to have a voice in the community that you live in and that you care about so much. When I started in 2011, I wasn't married yet. Now I'm married with 3 kids, and it does take up a pretty good amount of time. I'm looking forward to being home in the evenings a little bit more to support my wife and some of the things she's doing, activities she's involved with, and just raise my kids in the community I love. And I could see missing it a lot and really wanting to get back in, or I could see being very grateful for the break, and it'll always be there. That's a good thing about city council. You can run any year. There's 3 seats up every single year. You don't need to wait 2 years or 4 years or 6 years or 8 years. You can do it. And we'll see if my dad gets elected. I don't know if we'll have 2 Spragues in there or not. It could be fun to do it with him if I were to run and people chose to reelect me after taking a year off. But for the most part, for now, I'm just looking forward to the break. I'm actually gonna shut down my social media for at least a month or so, delete the apps from my phone, and just get a mental break from it. I'm not going to delete my accounts, but I'm just going to take a mental break from it for at least a month, maybe 2 months, just to reset a little bit, and then we'll see.
It would probably be a perfect timing too, because it'd be right after the election. So
Yeah. Yeah.
whoever wins, it's still going to be a crazy time on social media come here the end of 2020. But is this, we're talking about City of Bangor and you sitting on the city council. I mean, is there ever a goal you wanted to go bigger than this, or is this just a city council was the fun part because it's local, it's what the city you live in, the city you love, or is it like higher political offices ever in your future?
Yeah. I get that question all the time. And if you had asked me 3 or 4 years ago, I would have given a different answer. I would have been more interested in it a few years ago. I'm at kind of a good place right now in terms of not aiming for that, because one, I really like my job where I work for First National Bank. I'm very fulfilled by that. I have many things I want to accomplish in this job, that I get a great chance to be involved with the community from a different angle, from the business side of things through my day job. And also, as I mentioned before, I've got little kids at home, and the idea of trying to be a state rep or a state senator or something like that, it's just logistically hard when you have little kids and a day job. And you see that in Augusta, where there's not a lot of young to middle-aged professionals in elected office in Augusta. You tend to get retirees or self-employed people or younger people that aren't even into their careers yet, because anybody that's in a career, it's just really challenging to get back and forth to Augusta. And I think I'm generally sort of a nonpartisan person, not for the sake of just trying to find the middle ground and be there, but I'm not like full-throated progressive, and I'm certainly not hardcore conservative. I have views in different spots on the political spectrum. And this moment of time we're in, it seems like you got to be full-throated all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's just not me right now. And I don't know if the pendulum swings back, but I just want a break from thinking about it for a little while. And I don't know, I might never run for higher office, and that'd be totally fine. Or in a few years, if the opportunity presents it, I would be always honored to serve in any capacity I could. But it might also be running for city council again and trying to continue to make a difference right here. But if you asked me a few years ago, I was more eager to jump at something like that, and my interest has kind of waned as the world has changed. And honestly, I just love seeing my kids at night too, and I love watching them grow, because they don't stay young forever, and already kind of seeing that a bit. Our oldest especially will be 7 soon, and I just want to be around for their childhood and be an active dad to them.
And I mean, it happened to my dad when he was playing. He was playing in bands as a when we were young kids under the age of 10. my brothers and I, and he stayed home one night. He wasn't playing at a bar that night, and he stayed home. And my one of my I think it was my little brother looks at him and goes, "Oh, Dad, you're home tonight? Mom's gone. We're used to being the opposite." And
Yeah.
that's when my dad immediately called up his bandmates, and we're like, "Okay, we're gonna play the last few gigs, but I'm done." And it's
Yeah.
that recognizing it and so on. So there are small things in my life. I mean, I just got married in August, and we're looking eventually to start a family, and
Mm-hmm.
there will be things that I'll have to like decide, do I do this or not, or what do I do to make it so that I'm home a little bit more. So I can completely understand that and
Yep.
that aspect of it too. But yes, I mean, there is some things that eventually after a couple of years off of city council, you might get that urge again, that I can understand you not making a complete decision now, but saying, hey, I'll leave the door open to something.
Yep.
To touch on that, the specifically one way or the other kind of politics right now, I get that because I go to work, and Abe and Heather are pretty, Biden Harris is who they're voting for and so on and all that stuff. And I go down to my parents' house or talk to my dad on the phone. He's a conservative Christian pastor, and he's in that camp right now that he has his values of what's going on, but yet he's like, it's hard for him to think of Trump being that figurehead. And so
Yeah.
he's in this tough spot right now where he's like, I'm trying to vote in my mind for the values I want, like the different, he's pro life and all that stuff. So it's like he's trying to figure that stuff out while also figuring out the political figurehead that's there. And so it's a really tough time, I think, in politics. And this is why it's so important to vote all the way down from, the lower levels to the presidency in 2020. Um, why is it important to vote local? I mean, what's important to you, your city council member right now? What's the most important? A lot of people don't, like, even when they go to vote, a lot of times they'll check off that box for the presidency and leave all the rest of them blank because they don't know what the heck's going on. What's the importance
Yeah.
of voting local?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. And in a presidential year, the voter turnout swells to at least double a non-presidential year, and it's probably even more. Because those high level races get all the attention, but a lot of things that impacts people's regular lives are local issues, both city council, but also school committee type issues. And there's 9 councilors in Bangor, whatever town people are living in who are listening to this. It's probably similar. Smaller towns might have 3 or 5 or 7, but those decisions really do impact people's daily lives. It's the decision about how the roads are going to be paved, how you're going to balance the budget with paying for things like infrastructure and also services people need without raising taxes or trying not to raise taxes to do it. What's going to happen to the schools with COVID? What resources are going to be available? What services can the community provide? What's going on at the library? What's going on at the airport? What's going on the waterfront? Though there are decisions that come up that we've had many 5-4 votes on the council, and I've been on both sides of a 5-4 vote. And if the council makeup was different by one person, these questions would have been decided a different way. And those types of issues have ripple effects all through the community and through the future for years to come. But I also tend to think, I mean, who doesn't think this, that it's our responsibility to vote. Men and women have died for generations for the ability of people to vote. There are places in this world that they don't have anything close to free and fair elections. In Maine especially, it is so easy to vote. There's so many different ways to vote. There's no excuses not to vote. And I feel like sometimes people don't vote because they think one vote doesn't make a difference, or they don't think that they follow it closely enough. Why should my voice matter? People have their own lived experience that democracy works ultimately best when the decisions end up being a mix of everybody's views based on their own life experience. And it's that melting pot feeling that maybe you're a bartender or a landscaper or airport ramp attendee or whatever it is, and some may think, what does my voice matter, and I'm not even following this stuff that closely, why should I vote? Well, you still have a voice in all how all this works, and your voice counts just as much as the wealthiest person in the community or the most powerful person. But tens of millions of people won't vote in this election. And who's to know whether the results would be different or would have been different in 2016 if all these people had voted? And one person saying their vote doesn't matter. Well, there's 60 million people in the country that said that. And if they had all voted, things would have been different. So I don't understand why people wouldn't vote, but I know that there's kind of if it's imposter syndrome or it's just a feeling of kind of hopelessness. Well, show up to vote and see how it feels and see how it changes your mindset a little bit just to show up and do it. Because I think voting itself is kind of fun too, the whole
I mean, it's an
experience.
accomplishment thing. It's also one of those things that, like, as an adult, you feel like you actually get some say in something, and the idea that you can actually make a difference in small things. You could vote tomorrow, and well, one of the reasons we have these people in place, city council members, and up to all the way up to the presidency, is someone else is going to do the job for you. Like,
Yeah,
it's the decisions that you want made, but like, who's going to make those decisions for you so that you can do your regular job and
yep,
someone else can handle all this stuff. And so and I feel like if out of any years of the election, this year has been the easiest to find out information on whether you're registered, whether how you can vote, mail-in ballots, dropping off ballots, all those different things.
yep,
I was just researching a little bit about what websites you can go on to look at these things, and the NBA has a vote websites. The Rock the Vote has a website. All these different places to just Google right now, am I
yep,
registered to vote? And the number of places that will tell you how to check that, it's far greater than I remember it being 4 years ago. I
yep,
don't know if it's the pandemic and not having to be able to go to the ballots. I don't know if it's the polarizing difference in the candidates for presidency this year compared to 4 years ago
yep.
or beyond that. But like, just seriously, just type in, am I registered to vote on Google? And it will there's 15 dozen websites
Yeah.
to find out whether or not you're registered to vote or how you can register to vote. Luckily, in Maine, you can register to vote by mail, but you can also do it on November 3rd,
Mhm.
which is really kind of a cool, unique thing. You can mail your ballot in certain places, but like, is Bangor's still goal to have the polling places all open still? Is that the plan?
Yeah, Maine typically has among the highest voter turnout in the country, which is great. And we make it generally pretty easy for people to vote. People can request an absentee ballot by mail right now by contacting their town hall. But in Bangor, on actual election day, we have one location, which is the Cross Center, and people can go on November 3rd and vote. We're also opening up the Cross Center for voting starting on October 13th. People can go, I think it's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., maybe might be 6 p.m every day in October from October 13th until the end of the month, and people can vote in person. Uh, and or people can go to City Hall right now and vote as well. So there's so many ways to vote, and you can register at City Hall, you can register at the Cross Center, you can register before Election Day or on Election Day. Same day voter registration is a great thing because people move and they forget to change their voter registration, or they lose track of it, or for whatever reason, they're not registered to vote at the location that they are living. And if we didn't have same day voter registration, a lot of those people would be disenfranchised. Where why not let them register on the day of, as long as they can provide the right documentation to show that they have residency. People should be able to register. And Maine is one of the states that lets that happen. And for all these reasons, we're among the states with the highest turnout every year, which is a great thing.
And I can speak personally to it. In 2017, 2016 was a crazy year for me, so I didn't vote in 2016 for local offices and things like that. And actually, I will admit they didn't vote for presidency, obviously, because I was going through divorce and all this other stuff. So I have all my personal excuses. But in 17, I voted for. I was living in downtown Bangor, so I voted in the Bangor City Council votes and all those things. And so I personally can speak to the idea of walking right up there with the correct information, stepping up to someone there, filling out a piece of paper, and then getting my ballot and able to go vote on the floor of the Cross Insurance Arena, and then turn around, turn my ballot in and leave. And it was quick and easy.
Yep.
And then I can speak to being in Orrington right now, whereas a few months ago, I forgot that I had moved to Orrington in 2018 and I hadn't voted since then in any local elections. And so I was like, oh no. So I submitted online and voted. Actually, now that I remember, it was last November-ish area that I
Yep.
voted in a local election, and I submitted I asked for an absentee ballot online, and they said you're not registered to vote, so they mailed me something in the mail to do that. I put a copy of what I needed to put in the mail, mailed it back to them. It was super easy to do. So both ways are really easy to do. It's not that hard. You can register to vote when you go to the town hall to get anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I was there. We went and got a marriage certificate this summer. I could have registered to vote right then as well. So
Yeah.
it's really easy to do. So there should be no more excuses on the aspect of it's a difficult thing to do. I know that used to be a little bit harder. Oh, I'm working all day Tuesday and
Right.
that and the other thing. It's so easy to do it now. Like you said, there should be no reason why we shouldn't be
Yeah.
voting.
And the other
On
thing, Justin, that's really easy too is participating in local government after election day. Uh, People can show up to any of our meetings, or they can contact any city councilor by email, over the phone. We're much more accessible, I think, than people realize. And at least when we're having meetings in person, now a lot of the meetings are via Zoom until COVID is over. But we would have meetings that sometimes there'd be a hot button issue that the room would be full of citizens, but that was also pretty rare. And if most of our meetings, if somebody showed up to speak, it was out of the ordinary. And anybody, especially if you live in the community where you're speaking at the town hall, but even if you don't, we'd have people that don't live in Bangor that would come speak at our meetings. You get to speak to all 9 city councilors and the city manager and the city attorney, and everybody listens to you. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there are places in the world where that simply could not or would not ever happen. And if people have an idea for the community or a suggestion, or they see something in their neighborhood or on their block that needs to be improved, they can bring it forward. People can write letters to the editor. People can advocate for change in many different ways that are low impact, low energy things to do. It's just showing up, and it's just kind of getting over, whether it's the mental hurdle or imposter syndrome or whatever it is, to get over that hurdle to actually participate in this stuff and get involved. It's very easy to do, and I think very rewarding and fulfilling to do as well. So people should vote, but then also should follow the agendas and participate in them.
And like you said with the Zoom thing, it's a lot easier for a lot of us to vote or to participate. I mean, I've been scrolling through my Facebook before on a random night. I forget what night you guys do your meetings, but like I'd see you guys and all the little heads on the
Yep.
Zoom, and I'll just stop and I'll press unmute and watch and listen for a little while. And again, I manage a business that has a location in downtown Bangor that we're not open right now, so it does affect me personally. But eventually, I mean, that's obviously whatever happens in downtown Bangor does affect our business. But I live in Orrington and work in Orono mostly. But still, even if we didn't have something downtown, the Bangor area is really important for the places I go to eat and visit and so on. So paying attention to those things is pretty cool too, because you get to be part of an office. Like I said, big enough city, but a small enough city in the same sense.
Yeah.
It's like it's a city, but yet you still get to have the opportunity to actually participate in these things. I feel like your voice makes a difference, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's been one of the most rewarding things about being on city council is it's happened so many times, and I love it when it does. If somebody reaches out that there's a street light out on their street that needs to be replaced, and they'll send a message or give a phone call, and I or whoever they contact will be like, yeah, all right, let's fix that. And more often than not, it's fixed pretty quickly. And they're just like, I can't believe how easy that was. And it's like, yeah, that's 50% of the role of a city councilor is vision, agenda, long-term thinking for the community. And 50%, I think, is just connecting citizens with the right person to get to service whatever their concern is and to take care of it. And I've really liked that aspect of the job as well.
I will say, Ben and I go back a while. Like I said, we talked about at the beginning of the episode about how we went to high school together, a couple years separated, but yet we've tracked with each other over the years, and now we're back in. I mean, Ben was one of the big people in helping us get our building for Orono Brewing Company in Orono at First National Bank. The unbelievable people there. But one of the big things I will say about Ben is how transparent he is. He mentioned social media and getting off of that for a little bit, but how transparent you are with how you sided on certain different issues that you guys voted for at City Council. You'll say, I voted against this, I voted for this, but this is why, and explaining. And a lot of the people who comment back are, most of them, I mean, there's the trolls on the internet, but most of them are, thank you, Ben, for at least being transparent and telling us how you feel about these things. I don't follow all of the city council members. I'll be honest on that. I mean, because we have a relationship outside of your city council, being a city council member. But the idea that you were very transparent about what you do, how you feel, and how you would vote, it's pretty cool. And I appreciate that from you, and hope that, I mean, people also take that forward for the future city councils of Bangor. Maybe your dad maybe get some. I don't know. Does your dad do social media pretty well? I mean,
He's
he's not
learning.
that old. Yeah.
Not
So
really, but he's getting there. And
my dad is the COVID hit, and it's made him be more active on social media with being a pastor of a church.
yeah, yeah. My dad will have no problem being transparent though, because he doesn't have anything he's going to try to hide. But and I think mostly the counselors do that. But I found it to really help things that early on in my city council career, such that I, as any human being, nobody likes to get criticized or get negative feedback, but quickly realized it's a lot better just to put it out there and be honest. And sometimes, best case, you can change people's mind and bring them around to your way of thinking. So they might not have had the full story, or they might not have understood the complexity of it, or they might have only gotten bits and pieces, and you can kind of help inform them about the overall issue and why you voted the way you did. But in the end, I think anybody in elected office owes it to people to be transparent, because I'm very appreciative that people in Bangor elected me 3 times to this office, and part of the least I can do is tell people why I'm voting certain ways and be honest with people about why I am.
I mean, you're in your 30s now too. Is it pretty impressive that not exactly a third, but a third of your life you've been sitting on a council membership at the city of
Yeah,
Bangor, where you grew up and went to high school?
yeah, I did think of that recently, that it's almost a decade of my life, and I wouldn't have changed anything. I've loved it for the most part. Of course, every so often something comes up that is either a really difficult issue for whatever reason, or the way the public reacts to it, you feel like is just over the top or unfair in some ways. But you work through those things, and there's of course long meetings, dull meetings, but it's part of the job, and I've really appreciated it. I would encourage anybody who's interested to think about running for local office. There's also citizen boards and committees and different activities that people can get involved with. But when I was living in Massachusetts, I never felt like I was really at home in any of the communities, because I didn't know what was going on in them. And that's partially on me for not throwing myself in and investing a little bit more. But for people that aren't from Bangor or aren't from Maine who are now living here, they should try to get involved, because they've got a voice to bring to the table too. And I think for the most part, people that do choose to get involved with this stuff end up finding a welcome ear, but also to find it to be pretty fulfilling to do.
And I don't want to speak for you, but I'm guessing that anybody who is a supporter of Ben Sprague knows that he's not going to stop fighting for the city of Bangor in the first place. Now that he's not a city councilor, you're still in this city. You just bought a new house in this city, so you Bangor means a lot to you still, even though you're not going to sit on that board anymore. You'll still sit there and fight for the city in whatever ways you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not going anywhere. We're raising our kids here. We're going to be here, God willing, forever. And I'm on other boards and committees too. I'm on the Good Shepherd Food Bank Board of Directors. That's a statewide group, and a number of other things too, causes that are important to me. And I will make sure that the city council, I'm not going to be in the city councilor's ears all the time, because they deserve a break from me too, but I'm going to not stop following it. And if I see an issue that is important to me, I'll reach out, as I would want any citizen to do. And I will not give up fighting for Bangor. That's for sure.
Quick question: are you going to run the Boston Marathon again, or are you done with that?
I don't know. I would need to do some pretty heavy training. I did it before in the charity program, which you get a bib, it's all official and everything. But one of the cool things about the Boston Marathon is it's a time qualified marathon, unless you do it for the charity program. So I raised a lot of money and got a bib, but I feel like if I'm going to do the Boston Marathon again, I got to actually time qualify for it. And the qualifying time for my age group is like 3 hours and 5 minutes, which is a stretch for me at this point. So we'll see. I have more time on my hands once city council is done. So maybe I'll train more. We'll see.
So voting is November 3rd at City of Bangor. You can vote at the Cross Insurance Center, like you said. But you said you can start doing it right around the 13th.
Yeah, so people can go into City Hall now, but on October 13th, they can go into the Cross Center for most of the rest of the month of October.
And I really appreciate Ben coming on, talking to me about this kind of stuff. I told him we usually try to keep this around 45 minutes to 60 minutes, and this is perfect. I wanted one quick thing. My best friend in the world is Michael Durgan, and his dad sat on the city council member for many years, was mayor at one point, city council chair. You had a chance to meet him, right? I mean, you had a chance to sit with him. You were actually served with him, right? Because you would have been in
Yep.
the same time.
Yep.
Um, I, he was like a grandfather to me because Michael's like a father to me in a sense, and he
Yep.
was such an outstanding individual who passed away not so long ago. Did you spoke something on Facebook or anything like that? But any words that you had that you can shout out to Michael or anybody else who knew him?
Yeah, he was like a grandfather to me too. And for the early years of my city council term, he and I overlapped for my first 5 years. And I really just tried to emulate him and follow him around and learn from him as best I could. He was a classy man, and he was also incredibly thoughtful, and he dug into the work heavily. I think he originally came from a conservative place on a lot of things, but he had really strong progressive views on certain other items. That's local politics, but he just called it like he shot it. He called it like he saw it, and he was just all class on all the time. He was always wearing suits and ties. The way he carried himself, he kind of this military background, but he was also this friendly guy. And he really helped me along in a lot of ways to teach me how to carry myself in city council meetings, what issues he felt were most important that we should be focusing on. And the city really gained a lot from his service over time. I remember he got an award from the Chamber of Commerce, and he accepted it if they would give the award to him and his wife together, because she was such a part of his life, Carla Durgan,
Mhm.
who lives on, and he accepted that award with her as a joint award. And it always just reminded me to remember that no one does this really alone. People have significant others in their lives, and those significant others can play many different types of roles. But for him, it was his wife of many years, and they were a great team together. And his service to the city and the state beyond that was something to emulate for sure. We're grateful to him for all he did for this community.
And I ate 2 or 3 Thanksgivings with them at their house. I had Christmas sometimes because my family lives outside the state. So if I couldn't travel due to job or whatever, they were always there, and it was just always welcoming. Every year when I had Christmas with them, they barely knew me in a sense. Like they'd see me on holidays and they knew me, but I didn't get them a Christmas gift because they weren't that close to me in that sense. But I'd always get a card from them with a gift card to a local restaurant, usually Gagan's pub in Bangor. And I ate and drank there a lot, so it was very nice to have that. But it was just the show of compassion they had for their son and their son's good friend, myself. And it was just always that. So the passing of Nelson was hit by a lot of people, and it wasn't until he passed how many people I found out he knew. When
Yeah,
you posted something and Joe Baldacci posted something, and Abe and Heather Firth are like, "Oh my gosh, Michael's dad was
yeah,
Nelson." All these different things came out of the woodwork, and it was unbelievable how many lives he touched in
yeah,
his time as city council member, but also just his time in Maine, in the greater
yeah,
Bangor area, and raising his kids here and so on. So his memory will live on for sure in the
yeah,
future with Carla still being alive and obviously doing things that she can do, but with his son, and then now he has a grandson,
yep,
and his daughter, or great grandson actually just got born. So
yep,
it's great to see that the future is still alive with him.
yeah. The year I got to be mayor for the first time, he was the outgoing mayor, so he was chairing the meeting, and he took the nominations, and one of my fellow councilors nominated me, and he closed the nominations in like a second and a half after that nomination was made, because he knew I was going to have the majority of votes, but he wanted to be unanimous. And it was just this little subtle moment that I always was grateful to him for, because I think there were maybe one or two other councilors going to vote against me. Wouldn't have been the end of the world. I would have been voted in like 8-1, and it would have been fine. But he closed the nominations before any other nominations could be made because he wanted me to get it unanimously. And I just so always appreciate that little move by him that he did that.
That's awesome. But thank you for very much for talking to me about Nelson like that. It really means a lot to me. And hopefully, when Michael listens to this, he'll be able to know that his honor, his life legacy, and all that stuff lives on because of his dad and how great of a man he was, and how much he cared for the city of Bangor as well. So,
Yep.
but again, November 3rd is elections, or the voting day. We'll find out a lot about this country come election day, but we hope that people vote for their local count. Like I said, depending on what city you are in, Bangor has a few councilors up. Ben is leaving, and a few other people, right? 3, so you and 2 other people.
Yep.
And then obviously I live in Orrington, so there's other people. So just check out your local offices and find out what your dates of about voting. But vote, please vote. Everybody, please vote. It's your duty. You should just do it. I can't say
Yeah.
enough about it. So Ben agrees with me on that as well. So
Yep.
I hope I get to have a pint with you up at Orono Brewing sometime soon. Whenever we continue to grow and stuff like that, we'll be calling you to start if we can get some money from you. Well,
Sounds
not
good.
personally, but
I always love doing the site visits up to 61 Margin Street.
you're like, yeah. I'll see the building in a second. I gotta have a pint first. We gotta talk. We gotta have a discussion first. I'll go over to the building in a second.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you coming on. You can follow Ben on Instagram or Facebook and all that stuff. But you know what? Like you said, he's going to be taking a break from it here pretty soon for a little while, and then he'll get back into it after that. But thank you so much, Ben, for coming on and taking some time out of your day to talk to me. I really appreciate it very much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Have a good one, Ben.